The difference between quarantine and isolation. A list of references will be provided at the end of this clip. All character names are used for fun only. Well, greetings everyone. Shortly after I posted a video um, last couple of days, my younger daughter, Wonder Girl, tried to give me some advice on how to make a viral video, which I thought that's what I did, but she actually had to explain quickly to me the difference between making a viral video versus making a video about a virus. And hey, YouTubers, why don't you just leave medical terminology alone? Why don't you just use a word like stormy, make a stormy video or something like that? And this week I have subcategories even, like tropical, tornado, hurricane, typhoon. Anyhow, is there a difference between quarantine and isolation? The answer is yes. What is the difference? Well, let's ask some experts here. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, quarantine separates and restricts the movement of people who are exposed to a contagious disease to see if they become sick, versus isolation, which is separating sick people with contagious illness from people who are not sick. Another expert opinion I wish to share with you is that of Dr. Stephen Gordon. He's a medical doctor with infectious disease he's also an infectious disease specialist at Cleveland Clinic. And according to quarantine keeps people who are exposed to sickness away from others so they don't unknowingly infect them, while isolation keep infected people away from healthy people to prevent the sickness from spreading. And I'm gonna just go a step further and just simplify it even further. Okay, if it helps us understand it better, which is we quarantine basically healthy people and we isolate sick people. And we quarantine healthy people not because we don't like them, is because they've had an exposure. They had a known exposure to a person who's sick, and we're waiting to see whether or not they themselves have become sick and develop symptoms. If we're having trouble understanding the two words or remembering which is which, perhaps as a clue, remember isolation has an S in it, so it's for sick people. Quarantine, the Q1 is query. Healthy people, where we're querying whether or not they are going to become sick. What is the significance of this in a medical setting? Well, basically, if someone refers to Mrs. Y as being in quarantine, then all healthcare workers know that Mrs. Y is currently healthy. She's had an exposure to someone with a contagious illness, and we're waiting to see whether or not she'll develop that sickness. And quarantine usually takes place either at home or occasionally in a specialized quarantine facility. Versus if we say Mr. X is in isolation, then it's a red flag for all medical workers that Mr. X is actively sick, he has symptoms of that contagious illness, and all necessary infectious disease precautions must be followed. Those of us who've been around the hospital for whatever reason and may have come across a sign outside the room saying isolation, and if we happen to be there when someone enters the room, doesn't matter who, it could be like cleaning staff, nursing, doctors, they all have to wear some protective clothing. And that's kind of what you have to go through when dealing with people in isolation. And let's see here, according to the good doctor, Dr. Lisa Margakis, basically that's what she's saying, right? She's saying that isolation can take place at a home, a hospital or care facility, and special personal protective equipment will be used to care for those patients in healthcare setting. And you hear the abbreviation PPE on the news a lot. The lack of doctors and hospitals are crying out for lack of PPE. It's personal protective equipment. All right, and basically Wonder Girl wanted me to keep my videos short so they can go stormy, because apparently you guys have a fairly short attention span. So thank you for listening, and stay safe and stay well. Before I forget, here's a list of my references. Thank you for listening, guys. All the best.